friends, this lesson is for Module 5, Lesson 9. You know, last night I had to get out that watermelon that I bought because it just looked so delicious. And I was ready to eat it all up. So, I was trying to decide which piece I wanted to eat. Did I want to eat one of the halves? Or did I want to eat one of the fourths or quarters that I cut the day before? Well, which one would you choose? If you totally loved watermelon, which one would you pick to eat? Yeah, good idea. I would pick one of the halves too. Why? Because it's bigger. I don't want a little teeny tiny little bitty one. I want a big old juicy piece of watermelon. All right, perfect. I'm glad we're on the same page, friend. Now here's the deal. Normally, when you have a piece of something, you don't say, "Can I have one of the halves?" or "Can I have one of the quarters?" You normally say, "Oh, I'm going to have one half," or "I'll have 1/4 or 1/4." So that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we talk about these equal parts that we've cut? Our learning goal says, I can compare halves and quarters, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So here we go. If I have a shape and I've cut it right down the middle, you can see I scrabbled and colored in part of it. That's called 1/2. Go ahead and say that. Good job. Because half of it is colored in. When I split something into two equal parts, like we talked yesterday, those are called halves. And when there's just one that we're talking about, it's just 1/2. Good. 1/2 could also look like this. It doesn't really matter what the shape is, as long as it's cut down in equal parts on both sides. That would give me a half. Now, when I cut things into quarters or fourths, and I want to talk about one of the parts that I've cut, what do you think I would call that? Yeah, you're right. I could call it 1/4. What else do you think I could call it? Remember, there's another name. Here's another picture where I had just a fourth of it colored in. I could say 1/4, or there's another way to describe fourths. Yeah, I could say 1/4. Do they mean different things? No, they mean the exact same thing. It's kind of like my name is Kristen, but my last name is Arwood. So you could call me Kristen, or you could call me Miss Arwood. So I can call fourths 1/4, or I could call them 1/4. It doesn't really matter. All right, so let's compare these two. I have 1/2, and I have 1/4 or 1/4. Now, we've compared numbers before, and when we compare numbers, we talk about which one's larger, which one's smaller, and then which one's the same size as, or which one's the same amount. We're going to do the same things when we're talking about these different parts of the whole. All right? Now, just like when we're comparing numbers, we're going to start from the left and go to the right, just like when we read. So we'll start over here and we'll say 1/2, blah, 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 1/4. We're going to follow the arrow over. So you want to make sure that when you read it from left to right, it makes sense. So let's see. 1/2. Is 1/2 larger than 1/4? Is 1/2 smaller than 1/4? Or is 1/2 the same size as 1/4? What do you think, friend? Yeah, I totally agree. 1/2 is larger than 1/4. Okay, let's check to make sure we did that right. We're going to start at the left and we're going to read it as we go to the right. 1/2 is larger than 1/4. Did that make sense? It did. We rocked it. Well, we're already good at comparing things. You know, we've had so much practice in our reading, and we've had practice with other numbers comparing them. I'm not surprised that we did such a nice job. Okay, here we go. Let's try another one. All right, what do you notice? What's that first part colored in? Is that showing 1/4 or is it showing 1/2? Yeah, you're right. It's showing 1/4. Excellent job, friends. And then or 1/4, because I could say both for that. And then what about the other side? Yeah, that's showing 1/2. Now I'm going to compare the two. And again, I'm going to read from left and go all the way right. So what would I say? Would I say 1/4 is larger than 1/2? 1/4 is smaller than 1/2? Or 1/4 is the same size as 1/2? What would you pick, Fred? Yeah, I totally agree. 1/4 is smaller than 1/2. Look at the size difference. Quarters are a lot smaller than halves. All right, perfect. Now let's read it from left to right. Read it out loud with me, will you please, friend? And let's see if we did it right. 1/4 is smaller than 1/2. Yeah, our sentence makes sense. Good job. All right, let's talk about these parts again. But let's answer some questions about them this time. So look closely. Which one's the half? Can you point to it? Good. And which one shows 1/4? Good. Perfecto. All right, let's read some good questions and see if we can answer them. Which shape has been cut into more equal parts? So which shape has more equal parts? The top shape or the bottom shape? Yeah, you're right. The one divided into quarters. How many equal parts are in the shape that has quarters? That's right, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a lot more pieces than the ones that's divided into halves. That only has 2 parts. Which shape has larger equal parts? That means which equal parts are bigger? Good job again. Halves. The halves are way bigger than the quarters. And which shape has smaller equal parts? Right again. The quarters. The quarters are a lot smaller than those halves. They don't take up as much room. Probably because there's more of them, so we got to chop up those pieces. All right, we have 2 shapes again. Can you go ahead and press pause while you figure out which one's the quarters and which one's the halves? You got it? All right, let's answer our questions. Which shape has been cut into more equal parts? Ding, 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 ding. You're right, the quarters. Or, yeah, the fourths. Which shape has larger equal parts? Which picture shows a part that's been colored in that's the bigger one? Yep, you're right, the halves. Because it's only 2 parts, so it doesn't have as much to chop up. And then finally, which shape has smaller equal parts? Right again, friend, the quarters. It had to be chopped up into more pieces, so of course the pieces are going to be smaller. Our learning goal for today says I can compare halves and quarters, and that's exactly what we've been doing.